How you been?
Mostly okay. Like weirdly a wee bit tired. Work has still just been nonstop, and I can't wait to actually get 2 days off in a week, and yeah, just not having to repeat the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. Feels like I'm in like Groundhog Day.
I get that, man. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's the fact that we gone from like mid 80s and like mosquito territory last week to almost fall like temperatures this week, and everything just seems so exhausting. And all of a sudden, we're having UFC fights on the White House lawn. The Carolina Hurricanes are Stanley Cup champions, and the New York Knicks are NBA champions. There's all so much coming at you, wave after wave after wave. Sometimes, like, I just want to look like the world in the mirror and just look at them and say, please wash me clean of this. Please just get this off of me.
Oh man, I am very proud of you, man. And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on all sides of planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel all the way to Ukraine and we go to Uganda, but we take the long way around. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I'm the only. I'm the one who wants to remind the dear listener out there to never give up on your dreams because Jordan Stahl just won the Conn Smythe Trophy as a 37-year-old dude, Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, well, when you put it that way, I guess I have 3 years left to win the Conn Smythe, considering I turn 34 next month. Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, we don't talk hockey, lest you think we do that. We do in our off times, but on this time, we talk about music. We talk about albums. We talk about songs. And we take an album of our choice based on whether we have it in our collection, or it's up on the charts, or it fits a certain theme we're talking about. We take that album, we listen to it, and then we come together to talk about the album, song by song, note by note, line by line. Pick out what we like, what we don't like, what we thought could have been improved, what we thought could not be improved. It's just perfect and flawless. And at the end of the review, we pick our favorite songs. We give the album a rating out of 10. We recommend another album based on the one we just listened to. And we pick another album to discuss for the next episode. But before we get into this episode and choose our next episode, we must talk about the last episode. Ryan, what did we talk about last week here on Hey, Listen to This?
We talked about the Grammy-nominated album Hit Me So Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. It was released in 2024. For me, I was, curious about what drew me to wanting to listen to that record again. And after further dissection, I think I got my answer. Now, would I throw it into my record collection, or would I consider giving it another listen on my own volition? Well, dear listener out there, I'm just I'm gonna save the suspense there. You know what to do. Go back one episode, check out that episode, and then come back to this episode. Make a Sunday out of it, man. Anyways, Matthew, what were your thoughts and feelings about doing "Hit Me Hard and Soft" by Billie Eilish last week?
I'm glad we did the episode, and I'm glad we were able to talk about some of her latest hits like Lunch and Birds of a Feather and Wildflower. It was an interesting review because we didn't necessarily agree on everything. There were some moments where I questioned just what was going on, but if you, the listener, want to find out what's being questioned or why I questioned it and how we somehow came to a civil conclusion, because we like civil conclusions here on Hey Listen to This. Like Ryan said, make a Sunday out of it, take a listen to that episode and others from our back catalog. So yeah, it was a good time nonetheless.
Absolutely, my dude. But we must progress because we have thoroughly talked about Billie Eilish for the second time in the history of our show. Will there be a third time? Who knows? We must focus on this week's episode of Hey Listen to This. So, Matthew, what are we talking about on this week's episode?
So this is the next installment in our Pride Month series of reviews for 2026. And we go from a Grammy-nominated album that was created by a solo female artist who expresses some interest in her love life for women to yet another one of those exact things. But instead of the year 2024, we are pivoting back to the year of 1992, the year I was born. And we're going to be talking about the album called Ingénue by K.D. Lang. Now, for those of you who are wondering what a K.D. Lang is, glad you asked. Catherine Dawn Lang was born in November of 1961 in current home to Connor McDavid, future home to John Tortorella, Edmonton, Alberta. Born into a family of 6 led by her father Adam, a drugstore owner, and her mother Audrey, who was a teacher. Audrey would raise her children on music, driving Catherine and her siblings for over an hour to their piano lessons once a week. Now, that may seem surprising to you, but it is the Great North, and things are a bit more spread out up there. Just look at Alaska, even though that's technically America. So, when K.D. Lang was 12, her parents separated, and as she grew older, she continued to practice piano and other instruments, as well as continue to hone her singing voice. She furthered her music career while attending Red Deer College in central Alberta, becoming enamored with country music after participating in a school production centered around country legend Patsy Cline. This inspired Lang to start her own band in 1983 following the answering of a classified ad. Remember classified ads? We have Craigslist now. It's different. But she answered a classified ad for a lead singer in a country swing band in the Edmonton Journal. And the band that she would create was called The Reclines, in honor of the aforementioned Patsy Cline. And they started out as a tribute band to not just Patsy Cline, but to all old school country. Soon, though, Lang and her bandmates, including keyboardist Stu McDougall, guitarist Gary Colagar, bassist Farley Scott, and drummer Dave Bjarrenson, would start writing their own material, and that would lead to their debut album released in 1984. The debut album by K.D. Lang and Reclines was called A Truly Western Experience. It was released only in Canada, and even though it only sold 35,000 copies, which for the 80s is not a lot at all, it might get you like top 10 nowadays, but back then, not so much. The critical response was strong enough that Lang would end up receiving a Juno Award in 1985 for Most Promising Female Vocalist. And for those of you who are unaware, the Juno Awards are basically the Grammy Awards, except Canadian. By 1986, Lang moved from Alberta to Nashville to continue with her country music career, with her and the Reclines releasing their second album, Angel with a Lariat, the following year in 1987. She once again received positive reviews from the critics, but she finally received commercial success by duetting with what famous 60s rock star, Ryan?
Tony Bennett.
That's actually a really, really good guess, and we're going to get to Tony Bennett in a second here, but that is incorrect. It's actually Roy Orbison. They teamed up on a remake of his 1961 hit Crying, and that version from 1987 peaked at number 2 on the Canadian pop charts, and crossed into America where it peaked at number 28 on the adult contemporary chart and number 42 on the country charts. In 1988, she released her first solo album, Shadowland, which became her first album to chart in America at number 73, and the lead single, I'm Down to My Last Cigarette, became her first of 2 songs to crack the country top 40 in America, peaking at number 21. In 1989, the Reclines released their 3rd and final album, called Absolute Torch and Twang, which went platinum in Canada and gold in the United States. And between that album and her next one, Lang ventured on side quests that found her releasing singles for various movie soundtracks. These movies including Shag, Dick Tracy, Until the End of the World, and Salmon Berries. Those are all movies. And she also began drifting slightly to the left of country music, incorporating more folk and jazz elements into her songs. 1992 became a banner year for Lang as she released her second album, Ingénue, in March. That's the album we're talking about today. This would go 2 times platinum to reach the top 20 in both Canada and the United States, and it garnered enough critical acclaim to earn 6 Grammy nominations over the next 2 years, including a nomination for Album of the Year and a victory for Best Female Vocal Pop Performance, both during the 1993 awards. In June of that year, she publicly declared to The Advocate that she was a lesbian, and talked about that decision a year later in a somewhat infamous Vanity Fair interview by stating the following, and I quote, "I presented myself as myself. I didn't try to dispel lesbian rumors. I sang songs like Bopalina, which was about my girlfriend. I didn't take boyfriends to the Grammys. I didn't do anything to cover it up. I just lived my life," unquote. And for those of you who want to trip, go look up that Vanity Fair article, if just for the cover, because she was on the cover of Vanity Fair, sitting in a barber's chair, while Cindy Crawford, remember Cindy Crawford, was pretending to shave Katie Lang's face. It's a very interesting moment in history and worth a few minutes of Google searching. Probably not at work, though. And alongside Lang's advocacy for the LGBTQ+ community, she has also become a staunch animal rights supporter and a vegetarian. So that is a rather brief but somewhat detailed look into Katie Lang prior to Ingénue. And before I get into my discovery of Katie Lang and why we're talking about her today, Ryan, I'm going to ask you first. What do you know about Katie Lang, or what did you know about Katie Lang up until this episode?
So, my first, I don't know, conscious, oh, hey, Katie Lang is a musical artist that is pretty prominent, came due to my research that I did to prepare for the, as of right now, unreleased Pride-themed Hey Listen to This Game that my wife was so kind enough to, assemble. So, yeah, Katie Lang was in my rotation, so I was checking out their work pretty passively. So, whenever it came to the fact that we were going to do this review here tonight, and, at the end of last week's review, I was just like, oh, okay, that'll be kind of fun to, dive into more of Katie Lang's stuff and see if there's anything in there that, I know or, I would enjoy. Well, prior to doing this review, there were no songs that I could tell you off the top of my head of, oh, hey, yeah, that's a Katie Lang song. Well, dear listener out there, I will just spoil it right now. There were 2 songs off this LP here that I can confidently say that I was aware of prior to doing this review. And Matt can probably guess the one right off the top of his head. It's the closing track, Constant Craving. And then also the other track is Season of Hollow Soul. And yeah, whenever I came across those tracks while doing my review, I felt like I was getting hit with a bolt of lightning, being like, oh, I know that song. I was so happy with myself, man. But other than that, Katie Lang is a artist who has, basically escaped my musical education up until this point. So yeah, I'm very excited about doing this review tonight here with you, dude.
I'm glad you are, man. And my understanding of Katie Lang and how we got to discussing her album today is pretty much a 2-part Odyssey. The first part goes about, I want to say, maybe 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. Back to whenever I received a CD for Christmas entitled MTV Unplugged by the aforementioned Tony Bennett. And I picked that album up because I'm thinking, okay, Tony Bennett, MTV Unplugged. MTV Unplugged is for people like Eric Clapton or Aerosmith or Nirvana, who had the most famous concert of them all. Where does Tony Bennett fit in with the MTV generation? Well, spoiler alert, he doesn't, but it's still a really good show and a good album. Better than the 2.5 that Discogs gave it back whenever we discussed our albums of the year. Go check out that if you have a few minutes in between episodes. But yeah, on that album, Tony Bennett does do a duet on the song Moonglow with Katie Lang. And right before we start recording, I went back to listen to his intro before bringing her on stage. She referred to her as immortal and compared her to the likes of Billie Holiday, Edith Piaf, and Hank Williams. And I'm just like, okay, that is some gassing up. That is some rizzing from Tony Bennett that I, even listening back to it, I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if he said that or if he was reading a script that someone told him to say, but in either case, damn. So, remember liking the song, but not really feeling too much of it other than just, hey, this sounds really nice. And that was, again, about a decade and a half ago. Fast forward to the end of 2025. And I'm at the local thrift store, and they have CDs there for $1. Now, as Ryan has mentioned in the past, and I will mention it myself, sometimes I like buying music for $1. And so I was looking at the racks, and all of a sudden I see, Katie Lang, Ingénue. Look at it, saw there were 10 songs on it, figured for $1, what the hell? And that's how I came to own a copy of Ingénue. Gave it a listen, then gave it another listen, put it in that metaphorical freezer, and for the sake of Pride Month, here it comes, once again. So yeah, that's pretty much my cut and dry two-part thought process to Katie Lang before entering this discussion about Ingénue.
Dude, I'm constantly impressed with how you've taken a more, like basically an analog approach to expanding your musical taste. Like, that story right there is a clear example of what, an alternative to, instead of subscribing to what the music streaming service of your choice is trying to feed you. Like, that's a good example. Like, you're not going to lose much if you're going to get, spend $1 on a CD. And who knows? Who knows what that CD is going to hold, man?
Well, that's exactly it. Because, you think about it. Lottery tickets are $1. And, you scratch it off, you might win something, you might lose something. And with the thrift store scene, it's pretty much the same way, except the only thing you really lose is, I don't know, half hour of your time, maybe, depending on how good or bad the music is. And usually, most albums, obviously you have to do a little research before you go into it, but 9 times out of 10, whatever you get probably isn't as bad as one would make it out to be. We may challenge that theory later on down the line, because I have an episode in the back of my head I'm thinking about doing, but we'll save that for another day. But usually, with something like that, worst case scenario, you could give the CD back. You can give the record back if you don't like it, and somebody else might like it. So the turnaround for that is a lot better than, say, again, a lottery ticket or your average hot dog if they ever become $1 again. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, thrift store music shopping has brought me some interesting things. Hell, we talked about Toledo because of such discoveries. So it's brought some interesting twists and turns into both of our musical endeavors.
speaking about twists and turns and musical endeavors as a whole, Matthew, I feel like it is time, in the words of Michael Buffer, the famous ring announcer, it is time for us to, just get at her, man. It's time for us to dive into this Katie Lang record. So I'm going to let you have the opening track here. And that track is called Save Me. Save me, Matthew.
I will do my best. So, Save Me is the first track on this album, and you get that interesting opening with the almost Eastern influence guitars that have that little sort of like that very you're walking into a Japanese garden type of sound to it. But then it gets into the meat of the song, which, and you're going to be hearing this word a lot throughout this review, smooth. Like, the instrumentation on this track is so smooth. And one thing that I noticed right away is that, aside from the sort of Eastern guitar that's in the track, you also get the steel pedal guitar that's in there. And instead of having that usual flourish of pedal steel that makes you think of country music, it has a bit more of a country flavoring, but it doesn't have that traditional twang. It doesn't make you want to, wear traditional blouses, cowboy hats, and a resentment for the lower class. No, it actually just has a bit more of a southern flavor to it than a country flavor, which is kind of interesting. And then you get to Lang herself, and Katie Lang, man, is one hell of a vocalist. Like, her vocals on this track are just immaculate. They are polished. They are so smooth. And the way that she harmonizes with herself is just really exquisite. And overall, you get these chord changes you usually don't expect a typical pop, particularly how the phrasing on the ends of verses tend to harmonize in a higher register. It's not the typical 1, 2, 3, 4 chord style of songwriting. And overall, I think it works very, very well. If I do have one slight critique about the song, is that the lyrics are pretty simplistic. They don't really go super deep at times. I mean, they go deep enough to save it from being completely up its own ass. But at the same time, there are moments where I'm just thinking, okay, these are words for the sake of words. But the performance on them is so strong and so, like, wonderfully executed that I'm not going to knock too many points off for that. I'm not going to be a snob about it. So, yes, Save Me starts the album on a pretty strong note. I'm going to put Save Me into the good song bucket. I'm not going to go as far as saying it's great, because once you get the first minute in, it does kind of hit the coast and autopilot itself for the next 2 minutes. But ultimately, it's still really, really good. And full disclosure, before I swing it over to you, Ryan, I have a top 3 and a bottom nothing for Ingénue.
So, one of the things that you talked about with Save Me was the fact that, basically about like halfway through the track, it basically kind of hits that coast kind of feature, and you know what you're getting with this kind of song here. You also highlighted like one of the main driving forces behind this track being like as good as it can be, and as it is, it's Katie Lang herself. Like, I want to just talk about her vocal approach. It's funny that you were talking about like how amazing she sounds and how, like, great she sounds when she's harmonizing with herself. Fun fact, many of the vocal tracks on this song were actually recorded on a basic like 16 track machine in her apartment. They tried to re-record them later in a high-end studio, but they couldn't duplicate the intimate vibe that they got on that home tape. So, yeah, the demo vocal stayed. So, yeah, what we're hearing here is demo vocals, y'all. That's pretty fucking dope in my opinion. So, and like with Lang's vocal approach, the main thing that I really enjoyed within her performance here is the way that she just lingers on certain words and phrases. Like, it just makes for such a captivating experience that just, hooks me right in. You started your discussion here talking about like how this is such a smooth song, and it really is. Like it's a smooth, patient song, and Lang is just lavishing in the feelings of what's being brought to the table here, and it works pretty well. Wasn't entirely in love with the instrumentation. Like, gonna be honest with you, like I really did appreciate your diving into like the nooks and the crannies and the different kind of instrumentation that you get here. Like, I would just be as so bold to say that if it weren't for Katie Lang's music performance here, I would classify this backing instrumentation as almost like Muzak kind of like stylings. However, like I will give like one shout out to the instrumentation and the production as a whole. Like the way that you get the little guitar flares after the phrases "spoil me" and then later on "soil me" in the second verse. Like I thought that was pretty cool. I'm always a fan of sonic painting, and that did land pretty well in my ears. The instrumental break that you get here is solid, but I'm gonna be honest with you, it's pretty much filler, but it's not bad filler, especially coming right out of the gate. A slight pushback that I'm gonna give you though on the lyrical front, because I thought the lyrics were pretty solid, and I did have a lyrical highlight in the first verse, and it was just an interesting bar that I wanted to highlight, and that bar is "Save me from you, but pave me the way to you." Like, is this like I feel like that's kind of like encapsulating the feeling of the human experience when it comes to like love in general. Like it's just like very complex, and like you're not sure of what direction you want to go. I will though wholeheartedly say like the performance of Lang here wholeheartedly sells the song for me. Like there really isn't like groundbreaking lyrics, but I felt like the lyric writing was still like pretty solid, dude. So Save Me though, I'm gonna put in the mid song bucket, because while there is like enough like stuff here that can like that I can enjoy, like if it wasn't for Lang's performance here, I might be just lost in the sauce, my friend. And to give my full hand here, I have a top three and I have a bottom two.
Okay, all right. So things might get a little spicy down the road because clearly there are two spots that we do not agree on, or just objectively because, hey, you have two bottom songs, I don't. So we'll find out what those are in due time. But yeah, to back up what you said about the lyrics, I didn't hate the lyrics. I just thought they were kind of there. Like they weren't like, obviously we're not talking about like Bob Dylan or Joni Mitchell or even Laura Jane Grace, just as another example. But the lyrics for what they are and the setting that they provide, I thought they were mostly okay. I did really appreciate you talking about that fact that she recorded these vocals at home, because it's like, oh, that's really impressive, because on the one hand, it does do good things for anyone who feels they can do it themselves, because, hey, here's an example of that. But also, like you said, it does create this sort of intimate vibe, which I think matches the music very well, not just on this song, but on many songs moving forward.
So with that being said, my dude, I'm gonna just kick it into the next track here, which is "The Mind of Love." Now it's like we go from a song where we mostly kind of agree that the lyrics weren't like the main selling point, and like they were like, you know what, like they like I felt like I was a little higher than on the lyrics than you. Here, I would argue that the lyrics here are taking it up a notch because, like, coming out of the gate, like, you get the first verse where she's literally going through, like, I would like to say, like, a mental breakdown, and this mental breakdown, dude, is accompanied by a salsa beat, a salsa groove, like, like the contrast there was just so good, man. I was sinking my teeth into that, and I really did enjoy that. And the double tracking on the vocals, specifically highlighting this mental breakdown aspect of the track here, like the double tracking that you get where she's asking herself a question, and, like, the question, like, within the first verse, I'm just going to zero in on that, is, where is your head, Catherine? Where is your head? So, like, I like that, and I want to highlight it as an example of sonic painting to a T. And the way that she comes back in on a performance standpoint during the fourth verse is like it's more of a focus kind of downbeat, and it's something that if you really aren't listening to the track, you're gonna miss it. But I felt like that was a solid performance touch. The chorus within the Mind of Love was good, and overall, like, Lang had a good performance in that chorus, and the strings accompanying her landed pretty well. And, like, yeah, just the overall, like, lyrics as a whole, like, again, like, there's a lot of bars that I can highlight. I mean, it really does encapsulate the feeling of, like, just going through a mental breakdown. But the bar that I want to highlight here specifically is found within verse 1, and that bar reads, "Talking to myself here is causing great concern for my health." Like, incredibly dark lyrics, and I very much enjoyed that. And again, how it's, like, set, like, in contrast to that salsa motif, and, like, it just really, really, it just makes for a pretty good time. So, in terms of just overall feelings about the song "The Mind of Love," I would say I'm putting this in the good song bucket, mainly for the songwriting composition of the incredibly introspective and dark lyrics set against that salsa groove, and just the overall just impact of, like, there's enough nooks and crannies here for me to really enjoy.
So I'm going to start with one particular nook and or cranny that I'm surprised you didn't bring up because I thought you would, which I want to say was either the second verse or the third verse, but whenever she says, "Why hurt yourself, Catherine?" she has that, it goes, "Why hurt yourself, Catherine?" I'm thinking, that's a Ryan pause if I've ever heard one. But I'm surprised it didn't come up in conversation. So, but a lot of the things you said I agree with. First of all, the songwriting is a lot better on this song and is a lot darker. Because she's discussing herself in a third person. And what really stands out is how on the verses, the way that she sings before the harmonies sing and basically is a call and response with herself, and how she harmonizes on the response and sings solo on the call. I mean, it's a little obvious, but at the same time, it works so well. And it's painting this musical picture of a mental battle within. And I just love it. And not only that, but you talk about the line in the center there, the centerpiece of the song, where she asks, "Can your heart conceal what the mind of love reveals?" And it kind of reminds me of a line I heard in a country song that would be released a year later from Tracy Lawrence, where he said, "I got it through my head, I just can't break it to my heart." So there is that sort of line between how you want to feel and how you actually are feeling, and try to choose which one you're going to wear on your sleeve. And that's a struggle that a lot of us deal with, because you want to feel a certain way, but you might feel different and you aren't sure what to act on. So It's a dichotomy that a lot of people struggle with. Musically speaking, once again, her voice is fantastic. The harmonies are once again fantastic. And what's interesting is that even though this song is darker than Save Me, I would say the overall orchestration is livelier and more upbeat. Particularly because you get the strings doing some really good work. The percussion is once again very subtle, but it helps create that intimate vibe that we were talking about. It has a very jazzy, very solo acoustic night type of feel, but it's a lot more augmented than that with the strings and the bass. It's good stuff. And I was also kind of reminded too, just from a philosophical standpoint, of another song by Peter Gabriel, not from the album we talked about, which was Melt, but from his 1986 album So, where he did a duet with Kate Bush entitled Don't Give Up. And to me, this is Katie Lang playing both parts of the I'm not in a good place, but please stay in a good place back and forth. I think she does a really good job with that. And again, just it sticks in your head. Like the swells on the response where she asks, "Where is your head, Catherine? Why hurt yourself, Catherine?" Like, it just sounds so good. So I don't have anything else to say other than this does land in my top three, and it lands there at number two.
And like honestly, it kind of well, I mean, it didn't obviously pop into my my top three, but I can totally see where you're coming from, and I totally respect your opinion. Like, I don't know, like the other top three songs in my in my rankings just popped out for different other reasons. But yeah, if you're gonna include any song in your top three at number two, well, maybe not number two specifically, I totally respect that. And yeah, it's just a good song overall, my dude.
It is. It is. So I'll go ahead and move on to the next track on Ingénue, which is Miss Chatelaine. And the mood gets even livelier here. Like, the first two songs were sort of in that mode of, I don't know who I am and I need someone to save me. Where is my head? Why am I hurting myself? Here, this is a bit different in the fact that, fun background about this song, there was a magazine called Chatelaine where in 1988, I believe that's the year that this happened, she was named Woman of the Year by this magazine. And this magazine, I guess, is just sort of like I guess like almost like a Woman's World or a Good Housekeeping or some type of magazine like that, like a Cosmo in a sense as well. Just a standard publication. And her lyrics on here, I feel, are a slight nod to that, but they almost have this feeling of somewhere between a victory lap or sort of half bemusement, maybe a little bit of self-degradation there, like almost like, oh, so I'm just the Woman of the Year now by this magazine. Well, I guess that's cool, which, it is. But what really makes this song interesting is, once again, the instrumentation and the vocal choices, because we have chosen to go with a very Parisian type of flair with this song, where you get accordion and very upbeat percussion on hand drums. Like, it's very much a song you can hear like while sitting outside the Eiffel Tower in Paris, just downing an entire baguette with no shame. Like, this is the kind of soundtrack I want for that. No judgment, by the way. If you want to eat a whole baguette by yourself, I'm here for it. The point being that I really like how this song sounds, and I really like how she just sounds a lot happier on this song. Like, she has a lot more pep in her step. She has a lot more sort of joy that she's singing a song like this. And I don't necessarily think it's because of the subject matter in the lyrics, but more so the subject matter in the music. Like, this is the kind of music that she wants to make. Very artsy, very sort of cabaret, jazz, outside influence type of sound. And I like it, man. I really do like it quite a bit. But the only thing with this song is that it has the same slight issue that Save Me does, is that once you hear about the first bit of the song, it doesn't really change course too much from it. But the chorus that it's on is pretty strong, it's pretty solid, and once again, her vocals are just fantastic, and the harmonies doubly so, because more voices is better voices on these songs. So with Miss Chatelaine, I'm going to put it in the great song bucket, because it's one of those tracks where I can go back to it and be like, you know what? I'm here for a good time, and this is a good time.
This kind of song here kind of reminds me of a song that you would hear in like a musical, like an old timey kind of musical, and I'm here for it, dude. Like, you kind of compared this song in terms of overall structure to Save Me, in terms of like, once you hit the halfway point, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. I would agree with that, but I would also say that this song here, Miss Chantelet, is a far superior song for the fact that the groove and the overall feeling that you get here is just a fun time. Like, it's just a fun time, and you could really just feel the fun in the song if you just listen to Lang's vocals. Because, yes, this song here has that backstory about that magazine that named her Woman of the Year, and how like she felt about that, and like, while that story is fun and everything like that, you could really kind of feel that fun in her performance, and that fun like just bleeds out to the instrumentation. So yeah, absolutely a fun track. And it just also, the overall groove on this track, like just how everything kind of starts out, it's just such a solid foundation for everything. I did enjoy the inclusion of the accordion and all the different instrumentation. I kind of went with more of an Italian kind of flair in my notes here, but like, to be honest with you, you're probably more on the nose with the French Parisian kind of flair there. Like, it kind of just, I could see that being more of a walking in the streets of Paris at night as compared to like walking in the streets of Rome at night. But yeah, getting into Lang's vocals here, like overall, like, see, here's the thing that I will admittedly say about k.d. lang as a vocalist. I feel like she's a good vocalist. I'm not comparing her to like, Jesus herself, where like, Tony Bennett was just like, oh yeah, she's immortal. I respect Tony Bennett and I respect k.d. lang, but my not so humble opinion is like, she's just a good vocalist. But the range that she executes here is noteworthy, because she can go for moments of like just matter of fact delivery, where she's kind of just building up the emotion and the momentum, and she just switches that into like belting out notes. Like, again, very much enjoyed that. And also, speaking about like her vocals, I very much enjoyed the way that the instrumentals played off of her vocals at several spots, where it just seems like they're adding like a different kind of layer, and like they're just playing off, they're creating a different kind of like story there. So very much enjoyed that. In this track here, you do get a random like pause in the middle of the track, and yeah, yeah. If you guys, if you guys are fans of the show, and have listened to us for a decent while, you probably know that that's gonna be a treat for me, always, all the time. Lyrics overall, though, are on the basic side, but they're fun. Like, it's basically kind of telling the story here, and like, I would say that even without knowing the backstory here, like, the lyrics do make coherent sense, and they do tell the story of what Katie is trying to like portray here. So yeah, with Miss Chantelet here, I'm gonna put it in the good song bucket. It's just a good time for me. Like, it's just a fun, groovy time, and I enjoyed it, dude.
I am glad you enjoyed it, although its exclusion from the top three makes me even more curious that of what the slew of songs are going to be, because we are now down to 7 songs left, and you have 5 slots that are left open, and I can do math. I am glad you mentioned that Italy was another destination that the song could have originated from, because I can kind of hear it too. Just a very friendly place with good food that is somewhere well over the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe not Germany, but that's for musical reasons and no other. But yeah, I agree with you that this song is far better than Save Me, just because it is more fun. Like, it does do the same thing, but it's a much more fun song to do it with than Save Me is. Not that Save Me was bad, but this one is a lot more fun, a lot more upbeat, and a lot more enjoyable.
And I'm gonna be the first one to say it, and I mean this might just lead into like the next track here, which is "Wash Me Clean." Like, yeah, "Save Me" was more of a slow down song compared to Miss Chatelaine, but that doesn't necessarily discredit slow down songs for being fun. Because just getting into the nuts and bolts about "Wash Me Clean," this dude is an incredibly patient song. It's gonna take its time. It knows what it's doing, and yeah, it's just very deliberate and very focused. So, and it all starts with that guitar motif just grounding the verses, and it acts as a solid foundation for Lang's vocals. It's not a very pronounced motif, but it's a very kind of dark motif. And just one thing I noticed within the songwriting, specifically still focusing in on the guitar part, in the chorus of the song, the guitar shifts into more of an open and brighter kind of feel. And it's not like a definitive, like something that, unless you're listening to, you're probably gonna miss. But it's just a nice little detail that I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of fun. The guitar solo was good. I enjoyed how like they were able to establish the melody and expand upon it, and just made it a pretty enjoyable time. The backing vocals that come in after that solo add like a nice like subtle texture for me. And towards the back half of the track, you get that spacey guitar effect coming through. And I feel like for every song here, we're gonna have to talk about Katie Lang's vocals because, like, let's face it, without the vocals here, like, the album's quality is probably gonna dip. But yeah, the vocals here are solid. The lyrics are pretty sparse, like, honestly, but the overall message is pretty impactful. Like, it's essentially a love song through and through. Like, you get just, I even want to just highlight the chorus, like, "Wash me clean, mend my wounded seams, cleanse my tarnished dreams." That's just, it's, while it's not like elaborate, it's not using any like incredible like wordy words. Like an impactful message, and it makes for a pretty good time, my dear sir. So yeah, just overall with "Wash Me Clean," like, I feel like I'm gonna put this in the good song bucket because I very much enjoy what's being brought to the table here. Just, it was kind of missing that little something something that made me want to run through a wall or karate kick a dolphin, man.
Well, that's a new one. That's we can add that to the list of things that you have said. My thoughts on "Wash Me Clean" pretty similar to yours, honestly. I did think it was kind of interesting that they went with a considerably slower and I would say even quieter song, because granted, as Miss Chatelaine was much more fun and upbeat than its 2 predecessors, this is still a very smooth and polished album. So it's not like we were going from, some big arena rocker to a, quick acoustic piece just so the band can smoke or have a drink of water. No, we're going from smooth and upbeat to smooth and slow. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting strategy. But honestly, I'm right there with you. It works well. Her voice, once again, is carrying the torch on this track. And we talked about this before, though the first example that's coming to mind right now is the final track off of Hard Feelings by Future Teens that we talked about, DTFL, where we talked about songs that risk just having guitar and vocal or very sparse instrumentation of vocals. Like, if you're putting the focus on the vocals that hard, like, you better have something to say. And she does. She does. The lyrics aren't super detailed, but they are pretty effective, like you said. And her voice is there to just make it sound so wonderful. But honestly, the lack of instrumentation in the majority of the song, like, the guitar does sound very good, but it felt like everything was mixed so polished that it felt like it needed a bit more oomph to really cut through. And granted, that's just probably a production thing more than anything else. Like, if you did a little bit of remastering, this song sounds probably really good. But as it is, it sounds okay-ish. And where do I put this? I'll put it in the good song bucket. I'll be nice.
And the thing that you highlighted there within your dissection about the track was basically the core kind of like missing piece that I took issue with this song here, and it's just missing that little, like, little oomph to like really kick it in. Now the oomph didn't need to be, like, for me, more instrumentation or just a different kind of vocal take. It could even just been, like, more expansive lyrics. Like, my dude, like, the song was just missing a piece. So, but that is that, and we must progress on as it goes. So it shall be. And oh, hey, yeah, that's the next song here, man. I'm gonna let you have the floor on this one and close us off on side A of the record and review with talking about the next track. So it shall be.
So it shall be, and so I shall. So, coming off of Wash Me Clean, we do go back into a bit more of an upbeat feel with So It Shall Be. And one thing I did note is that the strings on this track were pretty solid. Like, I would say they are definitely being featured quite a bit on this track. The percussion, once again, is pretty subtle, but it does drive things pretty well. And like you said, it's a Katie Lang song. The vocals, like, come on, man. The vocals are strong. But what I noticed about this song is how sort of atypical it was from what we've expected so far. Like, Miss Chatelaine, Save Me, Wash Me Clean, it feels like those songs had titles that were featured very centrally in the choruses. Like, Wash Me Clean is about, being washed clean. She declares that she's Miss Chatelaine. She wants someone to save her. But So It Shall Be, it feels like the chorus feels more like a verse, in a sense. Like, the chorus does distinguish itself from the verses, but at the same time, it feels like she is singing a lot more low-key on the choruses than she has in previous tracks. And it does sound very good. Like, it sounds very more singer-songwriter-y than any of the previous tracks, and I dug that. I will say that the solo section on this track, I know you talked about Save Me having very much a filler solo section. I would say that goes double for this song, because that solo section is very much a solo to give the vocals a break and just to keep the momentum of the song going, because there really isn't a spot for any major instrumentation. So not the worst choice in the world, but definitely a choice. Yeah, honestly, with So It Shall Be, like, I this is one I may have to revisit in the future just to see if there's any more nooks and crannies in there that I would be able to find that I can appreciate more than I already do. But for right now, I'm putting in the mid song bucket. Like, this song's alright, but it didn't really move the needle for me a whole lot.
And so it shall be, man. It's Matthew says it's a mid song, and what do I feel about it? Well, let's find out, man. So, yeah, like I will. It's funny that you were talking about the solo section here being so like filler that it's basically just used as a bookmark between the vocal phrases. And like I didn't even have a note here for the the solo section here, so that just adds weight to your argument of it being just purely filler for filler's sake. So yeah, but yeah, getting into my overall thoughts though about So It Shall Be, the song does have a nice groove to it overall, and the way that the instrumentation is laid out on the composition front, it's fun because you get like different like subtle elements to it, and you get sections where you get the strings that are just sliding down, and like those moments just land pretty well in the ears, and the backing vocals that come in during the third verse, like I thought that they were pretty good in like the way that they were used to emphasize certain phrases, and just overall the way that the final chorus ends by repeating that ending line is pretty satisfying. But to echo your thought, dude, and your overall thoughts and feelings about So It Shall Be, like this is pretty much an album track. Like there's a whole lot of nothing here. I mean, it's a nice track in its own right, and like if it were in the like in the context of like a like listening through it on a CD or like coming across it while experiencing Katie Lang live, like it would be like, oh hey, this is her lesser known material. But as within context of this album here, yeah, we're purely in like album track territory, my dude. That being said, though, like again, Lang's vocals here are pretty solid, and I did have a lyrical highlight within verse two, and that highlight reads, "You just keep knocking and waking my heart like daylight chasing the dark." Pretty like prototypical, like oh hey, love is chasing away the darkness. But I felt like that lyric writing here was pretty solid overall, though. But yeah, overall though, with So It Shall Be, like I said, album track territory. It's not necessarily bad enough to slide into a bottom track contention, but it's just we're getting into the point of the record where we're kind of already hearing what this kind of track and what this kind of track is, and like we've heard this before in better context, man.
I wholeheartedly agree with you because, and that's, and we've talked about before, or at least I have, juxtaposition matters when it comes to an album, and it feels like the juxtaposition of a song like So It Shall Be is sort of a little dirty because comparing this song to The Mind of Love or Miss Chatelaine doesn't seem very fair. Like, because again, we've already heard something like this in better context. I would even say that Save Me is a better song in context than So It Shall Be. However, I have noticed we talk about this part of the album where we know what to expect. We have come to the part of the review where I don't know what the hell is going on because you still have a top three and a bottom two that have been yet to fill it in. We have 5 songs to go, so you are going to have a busy back half to this. This review. You're going to go full Knicks. You're going to do all your work in the second half and see what comes out on the other end. I am intrigued. And for the record, I have 2 spots left in my top 3, so buckle up. We got some exploring to do.
Yeah, it's funny slash amazing how that ended up. But to even add more weight to your argument, like I would even throw in like a song like Wash Me Clean in terms of like comparing it to So It Shall Be, because while like Wash Me Clean didn't make me want to karate kick a dolphin into the ocean. Like, there was still enough stuff going on there. Like, even just highlighting the guitar parts, contrasting the parts within the verse and the chorus, like, that was noteworthy enough. So It Shall Be was just like, yeah, it's fine, but it's kind of mid. So, but yeah, before we start this epic back half of a review, Matthew, I need a moment to breathe here because I got to get ready. Like the New York Knicks coming back in the second half of the game here, and I got a question for you, dude.
All right. I'm curious as to what that question's going to be.
If the dear listener out there is very much enjoying what we're bringing here to the table here with this Katie Lang review, and they want to help support what we do on a week in, week out basis, that way we keep providing them with like just really primo content into their podcast feeds week in and week out. What are some ways that they can help show some support for our show, and what are other ways that they can connect with us on different platforms? And if they're really feeling like the son of man and they want to get that Phil Collins review into the pipeline, what is a way that they can do such a thing?
Well, that is a rather extended question, but I will do my best to answer. First of all, the way they can support what we do here on Hey, Listen to This is by continuing to listen to this. And the way they can do that is finding us on their favorite podcasting platform of choice, because we are on many different podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Pocket Cast. We are also uploading our episodes every week to YouTube. And if that's where you like to get your podcast, we have a place for you there on YouTube. And if you're on those sites and you like what you hear, do whatever it takes to let us know, whether it's give us that 5-star review, like our page, like our episode, subscribe to our feeds, and leave us a comment if you have some extended opinions about the things that we say on these shows. Now, let's say you're listening to an episode and you really like what you hear and you're thinking, okay, I know someone out there is going to like these guys, but I just don't know who that's going to be. I'm going to take this giant dolphin net and cast it out into the ocean and see what comes out. Well, funny enough, you should mention a net, because we are on the net, the internet to be precise, and specifically we are on social media. And even more specifically, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. And if you're looking for us on any of those sites, well, you can do it the old-fashioned way. Type, "Hey, listen to this" into the search bar. Look for the blue logo with the black microphone. Or you can take the shortcut and use our username, which is ttheylisten. Again, that is ttheylisten if you're looking for us on social media. And speaking of ttheylisten, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, we have an email address that you can use to get a hold of us, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Whether you want to leave us some positive feedback, some critical feedback, if you're someone from PETA who is angry at Ryan for his violence against dolphins, or if you want to be the son of man and make that request for a Phil Collins review, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. And just a reminder that Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram is where you can find us on social media, and you can listen to our episodes every week on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find podcasts, because you'll find us there too. And for those of you who have done any and or all of those things, aside from Phil Collins, because we have not received that request yet, I don't think. Thank you. Again, me and Ryan are just two dudes who love to talk about music. We're not part of any major podcast network. We're not sponsored by any type of major video game, law firm, or law firm video game. We're just two dudes. And from one dude to another, Ryan, thank you as always for being a wonderful co-host despite your aggression towards dolphins. It's been a blast, and it will continue to be a blast as long as we continue to do these episodes, man.
And the compliment goes right back to you, man. Like, obviously, yeah, it's really awesome that we have this listener base, like, considering, like, this is still a very much, like, grassroots kind of podcast. But just getting the opportunity to, like, just to dive into different records week in, week out, despite our feelings about it. Like, prime example, like, spoiler alert for the dear listener out there, a few weeks back, we dove into the Justin Bieber album, Swag. And for me personally, like, before approaching that review, I was just like, this album's getting a lot of hype behind it. And what does it have to offer? Well, we found out what it has to offer, and we weren't impressed, to say the least. But, like, on the flip side of that, like, we also get the opportunity to, like, discover bands and artists that were just like, oh, this was a complete blind spot for us, but sign me the fuck up for this stuff here. So, and there is also the opportunity to have a running gag within a show in our friendship. One could say that it's actually romantic, but yeah, all jokes aside, dude, like, it's just been a blast just doing the show week in and week out with you, and I just absolutely love the opportunity to do it. So, yeah, without any further ado, I just say we keep this gravy train rolling. I have properly rested up. I'm ready to start shooting some threes and really just start laying into this back half of this album here, because for the dear listener out there, like Matthew highlighted, I have a top 3 and a bottom 2, and there's only 5 tracks left. So math is math, and let's just get the gravy train rolling. So the next song off the record, opening up side B of the album and the review here tonight, is Still Thrives This Love. So, coming right out of the gate of this song here, one thing that kind of just grabbed my attention were those sharp instrumental hits. Like, they were very deliberate, very focused, and like they come in different spots throughout the whole record, and they land pretty well. It makes for a pretty enjoyable time compared to like what we've heard earlier in the record. No shade to like any of the previous tracks, but this song immediately stood out to me for a pretty good reason too. And also, like, there is just one thing that I noticed about this track here: the random instrumental details that you get throughout this song make for a fun listen. Like, yeah, you can put on this record in the background while you're, like, doing chores. You're not really paying attention to it, and it can go by like a breeze, and it's just like, hey, yeah, that was good stuff. But with this track here specifically, if you get a pair of earbuds in, or if you're even just listening in, like, on any sort of like device, if you're, yeah, within the instrumentation here as well, you get several spots where like the instrumentals are just playing with her vocals. And side note, dude, like, I feel like lately that's been another Ryan Kern's musical kink. Whenever like the instrumentation plays with the vocals, like, it's always a fun time for me to listen to. Now, speaking of fun times, this chorus, can we talk about this chorus? Like, it's a treat just to listen to, like, every single time. Like, the way that she just slides into the chorus, like, after the verses, it's just so effortless, and it's just so smooth, and I just enjoy it 100%. And the way that her vocals just rise and fall within the chorus, and how it's complemented by the instrumentals, make for a good time. And Lang's vocals, once again, are really good here. The song, like, overall, like, I would argue that this is the first song within the record, not the first song, but like the most impactful song at this point in the record that really just complements her vocal chops. Like it just seems like a natural fit. Like the songwriting composition is strong, the vocal performance matches it note for note. And also the lyrics here, dude, they're really good. The way that she begins every verse by having a I often blank, is it so? Like, I found that to be very clever. Like, there's several examples of that structure played throughout the whole song. And within the song here, I did have a lyrical highlight within verse 3, and it's just a very nice, like, set of lyrics. And they read, "The lessons of patience are learned slow, and earnings of labor may never show." And yeah, that's just basically highlighting the fact that, you have to learn patience slow, and like, yeah, just because you put work into something, the results may never show. And that's a truth about life, my dude. But another truth about life is I love this song. It's a great song. And as you can tell, based on my cadence and how I'm talking about this song, and the fact that there's only 5 songs left in this album here, that this song does indeed land in my top 3. And Still Thrives This Love is my third favorite song off the record.
I very much respect that. And I can understand why, because the vocals, like you say, on this track are complemented so well by the instrumentation. I mean, the instrumentation, those strings, man, like, it's been a while since I've heard the strings on a song like this, a contemporary, for lack of a better term, pop song or contemporary sounding song to be the main star. And it's not like The Devil Went Down to Georgia or something like Galvanized by the Chemical Brothers. Like, no, this is like a string quartet. Like, this is like a chamber of strings that's doing this work. And that's very impressive. And they sound fantastic. They sound wonderful. They sound like the driving force of the song, which they are. And her vocals, once again, and the harmonies behind them are very strong, and they're very, very solid. And even though the main part of this is the chorus where, she sings, "Still somehow thrives this love," it just goes down so well. That being said, though, I'm not as high on this song as you are. Obviously, I don't have a bottom track. But to me, I think the biggest issue I have with this song is probably the same I had with the 2 prior songs, which kind of creates this mushy middle for me in the album, which is I wish that everything was a little bit more balanced out and a little bit more mastered properly. Like, the chorus pops wonderfully. I wholeheartedly agree with you. But where it pops from, I wish would have been a little stronger. Like, I wish the vocals were a bit more clear and more out front on the vocals. And again, I say this with an asterisk. The copy I have of this album is the CD copy from '92. If you might be hearing this through your headphones on Spotify or another streaming service, your results may vary, as always, when it comes to listening to any and all types of music, depending on who uploads it and the source from it. So there is that to consider. But for me personally, I just wish that the verses had a bit more oomph to them compared to the just overflowing oomph of the chorus. So that being said, though, Still Thrive This Love to me is in that same category as So It Shall Be. In fact, I would say it's even better than So It Shall Be. I'm going to put Still Thrives This Love in the good song bucket because for all my calls about the production not quite being there, the performances are for both the instrumentalist and the vocalist. The lyrics are solid too. I agree with you on that. So yeah, good song bucket for Still Thrives This Love.
I think the main difference between my take on it and your take on it is the fact that I felt like I was higher on the production than you. Like, outside of that, like it just seems like we were kind of like note for note, like in step with our overall thoughts. I just, I like whenever the instrumentation within this album here does anything that's different than like like use that kind of music for me. Like I take note of it and I enjoy it. So, but yeah, I mean, I totally respect. I could totally see where you're coming from in terms of like kind of throwing this into the mushy middle kind of like section of the album. But yeah, it just obviously it stuck with me, and we've knocked off one of my top songs off this record, and let's see what the rest of this review is gonna hold, my dude. So, without any further ado, are you ready for the next song, which is "Season of Hollow Soul"?
Yes, Season of Hollow Soul. And this track starts off with a bit of a Western swing feel. Like you get that stand up bass that is just so deep in the pocket. It has that very rootsy twang behind it. And the guitar is pretty much right in step with it. So it creates this very Western swing, very country vibe, modern country vibe, I would say. Like I could hear somebody like Lyle Lovett do something with this, or maybe even like a Bonnie Raitt. But it's Katie Lang, and once again, her vocal is soaring well above the production of the bass and guitar that starts this. And the percussion, once again, very intimate, very upbeat at the same time. So I very much appreciate that. And then you get the chorus where she sings, fate must have a reason. Why else endure the season of hollow soul? Which is basically her way of saying, hey, these events in our lives that seem so mundane, they must, bring us together for a reason. And the way she repeats this statement time and time again throughout this song is just so magnificently executed, man. Like, for as country-ish as the jazz vibe is at the beginning, the choruses are straight from Broadway. The drums come from, like, a Broadway show. And this feels like the essential components to the Katie Lang sound, going from sort of a back rootsy country-ish vibe to just this magnificent explosion of vocals, drums, percussion, strings, and it just creates for something like you were talking earlier about how Miss Chatelaine was something that came from a musical. I agree with you, but I'd say that goes 3, 4, 5 times the case for Season of Hollow. So, like, this is a stage number. This is the one-woman show that is Katie Lang on full display. And she brings it. Like, she is singing her guts out. And the way that, particularly towards the end of the song, you mentioned earlier how she lingers on certain words, how instead of just going hollow, so goes hollow soul, like, and the way that the voice is blending right behind her, like, this is, like, I want to go see this musical, man. Like, get me tickets to the front row now. Like, it is such a strong performance from her, and I know you're probably going to bring this up, but I'll bring it up first anyway, just because I can. That sax solo that happens in the middle, nice soprano sax, definitely adds to the jazzy vibes, and sort of pulls back a little bit from the big grandeur of the chorus, but man, that chorus is far and away the best on the whole album. And So Saith I is this song. I got Season of Hollow Soul right at the top, man. It is my favorite track off Ingénue.
So, one thing I want to draw a highlight to in the comparison to is remember within Miss Chatelaine that Katie Lang was writing from a point of view or like it just the experience of something, right? With this song here, Season of Hollow Soul, like easily like the vocal peak of the album because the emotional weight here is real, dude. Like there's some backstory here with Season of the Hollow Soul. So Lang has been on record, dude, saying that she wrote Ingénue while trapped in a severe, agonizing, unrequited obsession with a married person, and even at points calling herself a stalker. So yeah, that kind of adds a whole other weight to the song as a whole, and also the musical shifts that you get within this song here. Like you get the solemn Sunday morning blues kind of feel to a carnival chorus that basically captures the feeling of emotional wreckage and manic obsession to a T. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that fact because yeah, I agree with you, dude. This song here is a delight for me to listen to. When I realized within that first chorus that I knew this song, I was just like, "Holy shit! I knew this. I know this song, man!" And I was hit with those nostalgic vibes. What nostalgia vibes are hit me? I couldn't say. I just was reawoken to whatever the song was for me in the past. But yeah, the chorus in the song is just really, really good. It's so pronounced, excellent melody, and the way that they expand and play with the chorus as the song progresses makes for a great time. Because the first time it comes around, it just gives you the bare bones, and then as the track progresses, you get more of the body of the chorus being fleshed out. The instrumentals here within Season of Hollow Soul, I found them to be a great time. I already highlighted the musical shifts, and you said that there was a sax solo here. I picked up a clarinet solo, within this song here, and in this economy, a clarinet solo, sign me the fuck up, dude. We need a clarinet revival here in the year of our Lord 2026. So it shall be, man. So yeah, just the way that the band just locks in to a groove during the quiet moments of this song is hypnotic and makes for a very, very pleasurable listen. Lang herself is just killing it vocally. Best performance on the record by a country mile. And the lyrics are great too. My lyrical highlight here came in verse 2, where you get the bars: "Sour the fruit of neglect, the core of my doubt, deprived are my veins, you infect." Again, given the backstory about the obsession element of this song here, yeah, that's very much selling it to a T. So, only other thing I gotta say about Season of Hollow Soul is the dear listener out there might have guessed, since we're in the back half of this review, and it's basically the best of both. Well, it's either Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde here for me. This song does land in my top 3, and I have Season of Hollow Soul right there with you, man. It's my favorite song off the whole record.
Hell yeah. It is so good. It's a song I will always keep coming back to with this album, just how strong the performances are. And again, it's not, the lyrics on the verses go deep to a fault, but with a chorus like that, who the hell cares, man? It's just a grand time, and it's so powerful in its performance that it makes you believe that, fate does in fact have a reason, and that this whole thing means something. So yeah, this is easily the best song of the album for me. And it's not even really particularly close, but I say we press on to the next track that will fall into either one of your categories, Ryan. And for that, I will let you kick things off with Outside Myself.
So, yeah, with Outside Myself here, the performance, once again, that you get from Katie Lang is pretty solid overall. Nothing really over the top, though, and it's kind of hard to follow up the previous track as a matter of sequencing, but some track had to fall within the album sequencing here, and Outside Myself falls within that category. But yeah, the slight pause that you get at the start of the song is a nice touch. I'm always a fan of that. Like, you know that too. You've all like it's actually infected your review notes being like, oh, Ryan's gonna like this, and yeah, I liked it, man. So, and overall with Outside Myself, the chorus is the strongest part of the song, and that might be basically the equivalent of saying, hey guys, water is wet. Did you know water is wet? But yeah, the melody and the backing vocals in the chorus just make for a pretty impactful punch. And that motif that you get in different spots, like that swinging kind of like piano part motif is a nice touch. And the lyrics are pretty solid. You get a ton of imagery, though, within the song. And my lyrical highlight came in verse 3. And that set of lyrics reads, I have been in a storm of the sun basking, senseless to what I've become. So, why is this my least favorite song off the whole record? You might be asking. And it's due to the fact that the verses are a slog to get through. And at this point in the record, we've kind of heard this song before. And unless the instrumentation's doing something fun within the verses, or there's like, interesting bars here or there, like really captivating stuff where the vocals are really carrying the song, it's a struggle for me to get through. And there was just something about Outside Myself that wanted for me to get outside myself and never listen to the song again in terms of just how much it bored the crap out of me overall. Though I mean, overall, like I've heard, like there's definitely been other worse songs on albums that we've reviewed in the past, so this is not going to go into like the hall of shame and hey, listen to this in terms of like individual tracks. But yeah, this song here, it's a bore fest, man. I almost fell asleep a couple of times listening to it.
Well, I do have some good news, is that we are not going to fight, because this is not my third favorite song on the record. However, I am considerably higher on this track than you. Although I will start by somewhat agreeing with you that the verses are kind of weak, and that the chorus is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this track. That being said, though, I really did like the chorus a lot, especially the way it starts with the sort of subverted chord change that you're not expecting. It definitely has that nice sort of descending chord feel to it. I did appreciate that. And there were just a lot of little moments throughout the song I did appreciate, like the piano solo that seems to be like below the staff line for its entirety. I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that the sort of sweep and ease of the percussion on the song was nice. I thought the guitars were pretty good. Like, this is not a song, honestly, this is a song that just barely honestly escaped my top 3. Like, I have this as a cut track, but at the same time, I get where you're coming from. Like, if you take away the chorus and you take away Lang's performance, this song pretty much goes nowhere. Like, this is just pretty much just a basic country song without vocals if you take away Lang. But Lang and the harmonies on the chorus, I think, save it just enough to make it very enjoyable. If it had been mastered a little better, or maybe had a bit more meat to the bones on the verses, then maybe it possibly cracks the top 3 for me. But as it is, it's quite enjoyable for me. But I understand where you're coming from.
And one thing I just want to theorize with you and the dear listener out there. Oftentimes in our shows, whenever I come across situations like this where I kind of get bored with a track because it's basically kind of doing the same thing that we've heard prior in the LP. Like, I'm curious. Like, I feel like this song here, Outside Myself, is more of a victim of sequencing within the album as compared to just being a poor song overall. That's why I'm not like just saying like, I might have exaggerated a little bit in terms of like my hyperboles about like my feelings about the song as a whole. But like I don't hate this song. Like, it's not a bad song by any means. I get it, its appeal, but just for me, within this point of the album and the review, it's pretty boring for me. Like, and again, it maybe if you would swap Save Me and put Outside Myself as the opening track, maybe my overall thoughts and feelings would be different. But this is the way that the album's laid out, so that's my final opinion, dude. And speaking about opinions and not recalling any opinions, Matthew, the next song is Tears of Love's Recall. The floor is yours, man.
Thank you, good sir. Tears of Love's Recall. And once again, we go from somewhat of a, I wouldn't say completely up tempo, but much more of a beat driven song like Outside Myself to a slow ballad that Tears of Love's Recall is. And you know what? I am, just for the sake of our lives, because time is short on this precious earth and we have some grand statements to make here. I'm just going to basically say that my feelings about Tears of Love's Recall echo a lot of what you just said about Outside Myself. Not to the point where I'm going to say this is my least favorite track on the album, because Katie Lang's vocals are too good to sully to the point where to say this track is bad. But I was bored to tears with this track, and the only part of this song I can remember is the chorus where she sings those words, Tears of Love's Recall, and that's pretty much it. And again, I feel like on a different day, with a different set of headphones and a different attitude, I might be a little stronger about this song. But as it is, it's a mid song, man. Like, I get that her vocals are as good as they are, but this falls into that category that you're talking about of, if you take away the chorus, there's nothing there. And we've heard the song before, done better. I feel that very strongly about this track.
Well, this is going to be awkward here. I guess I got to talk about how this is my second favorite track off the record. Just kidding.
I was about to say, what?
I mean, I had to add some sort of suspense in there. I'm going to flesh out a little bit more about what this song has to offer, but I'm going to be honest with you. There really isn't much more than I can add to it. Like, Lang's vocals are basically kind of carrying the song. Like, they're pretty solid throughout, and you get like decent moments throughout the song of like dynamic build, like not only within the instrumentation but her vocals as a package. And within those dynamic builds, you get the emotional build as well. And yeah, just I feel like right there, that's the biggest thing that I liked about the song, like the use of dynamics. But again, that's a pretty basic thing to say that it's your favorite thing, because I like that doesn't even include the chorus. Like, the chorus is just, it is what it is. It's a solid chorus, but it's not the best part about the song. And just the instrumentals as a whole, like, they're on the weak side here, and the songwriting isn't the strongest, because it just feels like they kind of phoned this one in as a package. And yeah, like, the lyrics are fine though, like, but again, we're getting themes of love and heartbreak. I mean, my lyrical highlight within this song here was the chorus, where the tears of love's recall like blood to chocolate fall. I just like the imagery there. Nothing too deep to talk about. But yeah, just the like my main issues within this song here is it seems like a retread of what we heard prior to like this point of this album here. And again, my previous point with Outside Myself kind of applies here with Tears of Love's Recall. Like if we would have heard this track here sequenced higher in the album or earlier in the album, depending on your verbiage that you want to apply there, like maybe it would have been a better, more impactful song. I kind of doubt it though, just because of the overall package. But as for me, yeah, you probably guessed it. This is my second least favorite song off the record, dude.
So I had the flabby middle. You had the turbulent landing, shall we say? Because back to back, we get a pair of duds on your end. But again, I disagree with you a little bit on Outside Myself, but I'm kind of right there with you on Tears of Love's Recall. Like, this track exists. And if not for Katie Lang, it probably wouldn't even be able to do that. So I'd say we move on for this and go right into the finale of Ingénue, which, for those of you keeping track at home, is Ryan's second favorite song off the album, my third favorite, because that's how scorecards work and that's how math works. Let's talk about Constant Craving. And Ryan, the floor is yours.
So, yeah, prior to going into this review here, I remember kind of just peeking at like different Genius notes, and they were saying, "Oh, hey, like Constant Craving is like her most popular song." I'm like, "Oh, really? I wonder what it is." And then once I played it, I found out what it was. So, but kind of getting into like a little bit of the backstory about the track as a whole to give a little bit more context here. So, yeah, Lang absolutely hated this track at first, dude. Like, she felt like it was far too bright, poppy, and ruined the dark, insular mood of the rest of the album. And she actually actively fought against keeping it. And given what we've heard in the album as a whole, like, I get that. Like, the rest of the album's pretty dark, it's pretty insular, it's pretty, like, pretty low key and pretty emotional. But this song here kind of sticks out as compared to the rest of those songs. And in early rehearsals, the song was actually slow, flat, and like written in a key too low for her voice, which kind of curious to hear what that would have sounded like just a like a musical curiosity kind of thing here. But yeah, the song itself was on the verge of being thrown out until Ben Mink like stayed up all night long, and he just rewrote the song entirely, shifting the chords to push the melody into her vocal range. And also the Rolling Stones have a thing to say about this song here, because in 1997 the Stones released the song "Anybody Seen My Baby," and Keith Richards' daughter pointed out that the chorus was a total copy of Constant Craving, and to avoid a massive lawsuit, the Stones just settled out of court before the release and gave Lang and Mink official co-writing credits on the track. So yeah, just a fun little like side tangent there, man. So, but yeah, with Constant Craving, like we go from a double dud for me in the album experience to like a complete whiplash. I actually didn't know how to handle it at first. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, Lang herself delivers a fantastic performance here. The way that she again just holds on to certain words and phrases makes for a great listen, and that kind of does highlight that she is a well-trained vocalist and she knows how to accentuate phrases or just really just use her vocal chops to her benefit. And the doubling up on her vocals again in this track here in the chorus is a treat for the listener and myself as a whole. And Gary Burton, shout out to Gary Burton, man, on the vibraphone. Like that was a fun detail, instrumentally to listen for. And even though I would dare to argue that this song is mostly chorus, and you can find me on that if you will, the lyrics are pretty solid. Like in verse 2, my lyrical highlight reads, maybe a great magnet pulls all souls towards truth, or maybe it is life itself, feeds wisdom to its youth. So yeah, it's just talking about like, the pursuit of truth and like life itself. But yeah, it's just the reason why I didn't put this as my top track off the whole record is basically when it comes down to it, it's basically like mostly chorus. That chorus is fantastic for a reason, and they ride that chorus like until the cows come home, and it's an effective like use of a chorus. And like I just enjoyed the season of Hollow Soul just a whole lot more in terms of an overall package, and obviously you did as well. But yeah, as for me, Constant Cravings, second favorite track off the record.
Yeah, so I not surprised, but a little surprised that she almost threw this song out because it definitely is a lot different from the rest of the album. I mean, maybe not in the concept of. I mean, you probably put this alongside maybe Outside Myself or Miss Chatelaine for being the most upbeat on the album. Also, Season of Hollow Soul obviously fills that category too, but Constant Craving did hit the top 40 in America, giving her her only top 40 hit, peaked out at number 38, and you can hear why. Because for the first time, I think, in the entire record, we hear the sound of a drumstick hitting a snare drum instead of a brush or hand drums. Like, this is a true, like, four on the floor type beat, and it does feel very different, but it works. Like, you said that this song is pretty much all chorus, but can we talk about that chorus? Can we talk about that chorus? Like, it is, like, so strong. It is a hook that sinks in deep, and they refuse to let that hook go, and I don't blame them. Like, it's just wonderfully executed. The harmonies on the parts where they sing Has Always Been, just really, really strong. Even the way that they sort of do a very echoed call and response on the words constant craving are very nice. I did appreciate you bringing up that vibraphone because I was going to if you weren't, because it is nice to have that little hint of vibraphone just sort of floating in a top 40 song, just minding its own business, but getting the job done. Drums are really nice. The way that the song cuts out for those little bridges, like the bridges are really nice on this track, even though they're pretty simplistic and they just go right back into the chorus. Like, this is this is the kind of pop song you would hear from the 90s that you'd hear mixed with like Gin Blossoms or Counting Crows. It has a very college rock type of vibe to it, but I don't say that as a bad thing. Like, this song rules, man. And it was kind of between this and Outside Myself. I gave it to Constant Craving as my third favorite because I thought that the verses were a little stronger. I thought the chorus was a whole lot stronger. And you know me, I like the Stones, and if it's good enough for the Stones, it's good enough for me. So Constant Craving lands in my top 3 at number 3.
You're not going to hear any complaints from me. Maybe about the Stones themselves, but in terms of like comparing this song to Outside Myself and how this song here has a stronger chorus, because yeah. But in other words, water is wet, my dude. But yeah, it's just it's interesting to think about like how certain songs within like different musical artists' like catalog, like one of their biggest songs as a whole, like their breakthrough song, almost didn't make it onto the record because like a few reviews back we talked about Spaceman by David Bowie and how like that was just added in as a last minute single, and it turned out to be one of his breakthrough songs. So and like here with Katie Lang with the Constant Cravings, like this turns out to be like one of her best songs, one of her most popular songs. So yeah, it's just interesting to think about the butterfly effect of like different musical artists, my dude.
It really is, because sometimes the best songs are the ones that almost get thrown out, and sometimes the worst songs are the ones that get the most exposure. It's funny how that works, but our work here is almost done, because for those who may have noticed, 10 tracks are up. 10 tracks have been knocked down. Scorecards have been filled out. And there's only one thing left to say.
We did it.
We did it, man. We went back to 1992, the year of my birth, and we discovered the ingenuity of one K.D. Lang. So I'm going to go ahead and go first with my overall thoughts about this album. And this album, to try to find it all together, was a bit of a challenge because, on the one hand, I don't think there's a bad song on this album, man. You do get boring songs like Tears of Love's Recall and So It Shall Be, but even in those moments, her voice is still flawless. And K.D. Lang's voice throughout this entire album is flawless. And the production, there's not a bad note on it. So, like, any album that is that consistent in performance and doesn't have any sloppiness to it does deserve its flowers. On the other hand, though, it's tough to ignore the fact that this album is so smooth that it feels like it's lacking a little bit of emotion to it. Like, yes, you do get the strong pieces like Season of Hollow Soul, Constant Craving, The Mind of Love, where you just get K.D. Lang singing her guts out and just everything clicks. But a lot of times, it just feels like there's a few clicks and then everything else is just there. But that being said, like, ultimately, this is an album I could see myself going back to. Maybe not time and time again, like Transgender Dysphoria Blues or Blood on the Tracks or Blue or Abbey Road. But it is a very pleasant listen. Like, that's the word I would take away from this. Like, this whole album is pleasant. And in the realm of its pleasantness, it ranges from being so pleasant that you forget it's there to being so brash that its pleasantness becomes joyous. And this is tough. I go either one of two ways with it. But I'm going to go on the nice side of this album is good. And I'm going to give Ingénue an 8 out of 10.
And for me, K.D. Lang's vocals completely carry this album. Like, and when I talk about like completely carry, like, I'm not exactly blown away. Like, she's not my favorite singer of all time. I get the appeal of her vocally, but without her, like, a few of these tracks would honestly just slide right into that Muzak territory that I kind of highlighted earlier in the review. But yeah, just the way that she's able to linger on certain phrases and properly emote and just make us elevate a song to the point of like, oh yeah, hey, don't pay attention to the instrumentals, like, listen to me, I'm the main attraction here, is a noteworthy thing, even though like some of the lyrics are on the simpler side within this album. That being said, though, I will give the instrumentals like a nod in the proper direction where it's due. Like, you get a lot of fun details within this album. Like, you get a lot of moments where the instrumentals are playing off her vocals, and like you get the accordion on Miss Chatelaine, the sliding strings, and the surprising clarinet solo on Season of Hollow Soul that was a treat for me, dude. But the biggest issues that I take with this album is, outside of the big tracks here and the moments that you can listen into and like really kind of just pick up on like fun moments, like within, like, for example, Wash Me Clean, where like you get that change that guitar part, the album kind of falls flat in several aspects. Like, a lot of like my bottom two tracks are bottom two tracks for various reasons, but it just seems like a lot of the songs were basically kind of a one note kind of pony, and we get the slow ballad, oh hey, I'm so heartbroken kind of thing. And I'm not meaning to disrespect that, but it, like, after a while, the album's like, momentum with that kind of like, approach was losing steam track by track. So Yeah, just overall though with this album here, like I'm not gonna rate it in terms of like it's an awful album by any means, but it's not a bad album. And with that in mind, I'm gonna give this album a decent 6 out of 10.
Fair enough. And that makes the math pretty simple for this one. My 8 and your 6 averages out to a 7 out of 10 because
Math.
math works for everyone. It does not discriminate, it does not hate. It is merely math. So, for my next album recommendation, I'm going to take a little bit of a turn because while this album from Katie Lang was mostly folk, pop, jazz, a little bit of country, I'm going to go with an album that, like this album, has very strong vocals, very wonderfully executed choruses, and very much a mix of eclectic styles. Unlike this album, it comes from the rock world and has a bit more of a folks or a folky metal rock type of vibe. And furthermore, it is by a local artist and by someone we actually know personally, kind of, sort of. And that album is The Lost Boys by Noah Jordan. Because I was very much reminded of her vocals listening to Katie Lang, and especially on songs like Stay, End of Things. Those definitely have a same sort of lingering, longing type of vibe between person and person that Ingénue had. So that's where I sort of make it the big comparison. So my next album recommendation is The Lost Boys by Noah Jordan, based on Ingénue by Katie Lang.
And for me, I kind of went in a completely different direction than you. I kind of went into like I leaned more into that smooth element, and I wanted to highlight a record that I first listened to like years ago, and like I revisited today just to get reacquainted with that record, and it's more of a smooth jazz kind of record, and that record is by Miss Nora Jones, and the album itself is "Come Away with Me." It's always a good, relaxing go-to record with me. Like the way that her voice is able to captivate the listener into just a complete sense of ease. It's always a treasure for me to listen to, and it was a blast for me to revisit that album today. So easy next album recommendation for me. Come Away With Me by Nora Jones.
So, for a recap, and I'll try not to get tongue twisted on this one, Ryan recommends Come Away With Me by Nora Jones. I recommend The Lost Boys by Noah Jordan, both based off of Ingénue by Katie Lang, which, as mentioned before, we gave an average of 7 out of 10 for this review. And yeah, man, what a review. This is an interesting album to discuss.
Yeah. Like, admittedly, like, throughout different parts of this review and prepping for it, I was doing a lot of introspection. I'm like, am I not giving this album enough credit? And even though like we kind of landed at like different ends of the spectrum of overall ratings, I believe that I gave it enough credit where like it was due, and like a lot of the things that you echoed about like certain parts were just completely boring kind of made me feel a little bit vindicated within myself, because I always try to expand my musical taste and try out different things, and this was a little outside of my wheelhouse, but as always, man, I'm always game for going outside of my wheelhouse, because that's the only way that you can grow as a person.
Agreed. You know, and we've done albums where they were so far outside of our wheelhouse that we may have to mark them with a black X on the map. But I don't think this was one of those albums. Like this was a very civil discussion about, you know, a very different sounding album from a much different era that you're probably not going to hear the likes of ever again unless intimate cabaret folk jazz country makes a comeback, which I would not be opposed to, but only time will tell about that. But what time will tell now is that it is time for one last piece of business before we wrap things up. And Ryan, the final slot in Pride Month belongs to you. How are you going to take it on?
So, Matthew, we've been to a fair share of concerts in our time. Would you say?
I would say so.
How good is your memory about opening acts within concerts?
Somewhat good. I know a good handful of them, but I know I have it written down a spreadsheet somewhere. But off the top of my head right now, I'm not doing too hot.
All right, so fair enough, man. I'm going to put you on the spot there a little bit, and I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, with these two artists, these two bands here that I have up for contention for the last week of our Pride Month celebration of 2026, I felt like, well, one, you might have noticed that a lot of the albums that have been coming out of my camp recently have been pretty popular. Like, you get the Justin Bieber, you get the Weezer, then you get the Billie Eilish. So, as a result, in order to bring balance to the force here, we got to go off the deep end of the Ryan Kearns canon here. So, and what better way to cap things off to talk about one of these two bands that we saw live in 2022, opening up for a band called Foxing, a band that we've seen multiple times live. So both these acts opened up the show for Foxing. So the bill was Foxing and then these two acts. And the way that I'm going to have you pick between these two acts, man, is I selected two movies. They're, for better or for worse, are a rephrasing of the names of these bands. Are you ready?
I hope so.
All right. So the first option is Final Destination. And the second option is Lost in Translation.
I'm going to go with Lost in Translation.
Do you have any idea what band you just picked?
No.
All right, cool. All right, so the band you just picked is Home Is Where, and the specific album that we're going to be covering within their catalog is The Wailer.
I do have one question. Was this the first band that went on or the second band?
This was the first band that went on that night.
The one with a theremin?
Yeah.
Yes! Yes! Got it right! Pick the right answer. Circle gets the square.
I mean, I'm like, I might be misremembering, but it was the first band that went on that night. So
all I remember is that they had the theremin and they sounded really good, so I am very much ready to discuss these guys next week.
All right, so man, I'm very happy that you got completely jacked for that. So, dear listener out there, if you've never listened to The Wailer by Home Is Where, make sure you check out that record before next week's review. That way you can have opinions about the record, and then you can have opinions about the opinions that me and Matt are going to be bringing to the table here next week on Hey Listen to This. But yeah, I'm absolutely excited for next week, man. You have any other thoughts before we kick this review into bed?
No, our thoughts were what they were, and so it shall be.